All right, welcome to my global warning slash live stream where you get to see how I make the podcast as well as I'll answer some questions. I'll stick around afterwards. I got everything running. I'm going to start the recording. All right, so guys, stick around. I'll start answering questions a little bit afterward, and you guys can see how the sausage gets made. Cold open. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hit the mic. In this episode of Global Warning, Taiwan has new tanks. Why? The U.S. Army meets its recruiting goals. That was bad. I'm going to run that again from the top. Cold open. 1, 2, 3, 4. In this episode of Global Warning, Taiwan has new tanks. Why? The U.S. Army meets its recruiting goals. Canada fails to spend on defense. Republicans and Democrats want to give Ukraine more money. And Mali insurgents are having their moment again. Welcome to Global Warning. Oh, I screwed that up. All right. Cold open again. Cold open starting. 3, 2, 1. In this episode of Global Warning, Taiwan has new tanks. Why? The U.S. Army meets its recruiting goals. Canada fails to spend on defense. Republicans and Democrats want to give Ukraine more money. And Mali insurgents are having their moment again. Let's get started. All right, intro. Good morning to everybody. Intro in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Global Warning with Ryan McBeth. Here I offer analysis of newsworthy events, developments, and trends that have been lost in the shuffle of those larger events dominating the news cycle. First up, Taiwan has new main battle tanks, but why? It sounds like the opening line of a joke, but it is anything but. Taiwan recently received, as of February 2026, 28 M1A2T Taiwan version Abrams tanks, according to the Taipei Times. These tanks were purchased by the Taiwanese military from the United States as part of a larger multi-year procurement deal. Between 2019 and 2026, Taiwan has purchased around 108 newer tanks, along with new engines for the country's numerous M60A3 tanks. The total purchase of these tanks, including the M60A3 engines mentioned above, cost around 40.52 billion. All right. Starting from the total purchase of these tanks. The total purchase of these tanks, including the M60A3 engines mentioned above, cost around 40 billion or so new Taiwanese. That doesn't work. I'm going to run that again. The total purchase of these tanks, including the M60A3 mentions above, Woosah! I'm not going to be answering questions just yet, guys. I will try to go through everything. The total purchase of these tanks, including the M60A3 engines mentioned above, cost around 440. Why can't I get this? The total purchase of these tanks, including the M60A3 engines mentioned above, cost around 40.52 billion new Taiwanese dollars, or roughly 1.2. God, I just can't freaking do this. The total purchase of these tanks, including the M60A3 engines mentioned above, cost around 40.52 billion new Taiwanese dollars, or roughly 1.29 billion US dollars. These new Abrams tanks will be deployed as part of Taiwan's 6th Command Army and 6th Army Command. Man, it's gonna suck if I keep tripping over this line. All right. These new Abrams tanks will be deployed as part of Taiwan's 6th Army Command, and Taiwan also has purchased support equipment for these new tanks as well. Support equipment includes 14 M88A2 recovery vehicles, 16 M107A1 heavy equipment transporters, and 16 M1000 semi-trailers. According to the Taipei Times, Taiwan currently fields around 1,000 tanks. However, many of these tanks include older, obsolete platforms like the CM-11 Brave Tiger and the M60A3. Furthermore, Many of Taiwan's tanks have been in service for over 20 years. So why does this matter? Well, many on the web have declared the tank to be dead, and it appears that Taiwan doesn't think so. And this makes sense. Even in Ukraine, the tank still plays a role, albeit a limited one. In a place like Taiwan, if the fighting hits the inland, tanks could be used to support infantry in cities, serve as artillery support for soldiers in trenches, attack potential enemy armor landing on Taiwanese beaches, and I screwed that one up. In a place like Taiwan, if the fighting hits the island, tanks could be used to support infantry in cities, serve as artillery support for soldiers in trenches, attack potential enemy armor landing on Taiwanese beaches, and more. The tank, as much as internet sleuths want to kill it, is still alive and well. It is best to remember something else here, too. Taiwan needs newer tanks to shore up its own aging tank inventories. While they may have limited uses in the drone age, they're still an important part of modern warfare. All right, next up, U.S. Army recruiting has met their target. And in 3, 2, 1. Next up, the U.S. Army's recruiting has met its target for fiscal year 2026. The U.S. Army met its fiscal 2026 recruiting goal for active duty, signing contracts with more than 60,000 future soldiers 4 months before the end of the fiscal year. What has helped the U.S. Army recruit more soldiers? The economy. Well, according to the U.S. Army, they have managed this miracle of recruiting through innovative outreach, enhanced career incentives, and a focus on critical technical skills. The economy probably doesn't help either. No, I'm going to run that one again. That was a little too... I'll try it again from what has helped the U.S. Army. What has helped the U.S. Army recruit more soldiers? According to the U.S. Army, they have managed this miracle of recruiting through innovative outreach, enhanced career incentives, and a focus on critical technical skills. The current state of the economy probably helped a little bit as well. The United States military has reported a boon for recruiting since 2025. In fact, the Department of War, or Department of Defense, declared 2025 the best year for military recruiting in nearly 2 decades. So why does this matter? American recruiting has been the subject of a recent RAND Corporation report as well, which found that while encouraging, the U.S. military really needs to ensure... I don't like that sentence. I'm going to run that again. The American military recruiting has been the subject of a recent RAND Corporation report, which is encouraging. The U.S. military needs to ensure its newer recruiting windfalls are sustainable into the future. That sentence is horrible. The American military recruiting has been the subject of a recent RAND Corporation report, and it's encouraging, but the U.S. military also needs to ensure newer recruiting windfalls are sustainable into the future. Others have pointed out that better recruiting also needs to be paired with better retention efforts, something the U.S. military currently lacks. I mean, when you have soldiers already in the Army, it's usually better to get them to stay. According to a 2025 interview with RAND Corporation's Betsy Arch, the United States military, for a 50-year running volunteer military, has done an incredible job at recruiting and retention, despite serious crises. However, this means Congress and the U.S. military need to maintain the inertia here. Putting this into the context of potential war with China or, God forbid, Russia, healthy recruitment and retention infrastructure within the U.S. military will be key to ensuring the force is able to conduct its missions. All right, Canada fails to spend on defense. In 3, 2, 1. Next, we have Canada fails to spend on defense. Per an article in the Canadian press, a senior U.S. defense official... I'm not starting from the top. All right. Next, we have Canada fails to spend on defense. Per an article in the Canadian press, a senior U.S. defense official disclosed that the Pentagon provided Ottawa with classified documents detailing collective North American defense priorities, but said that Canada failed to deliver a credible response. This lack of what the Pentagon calls a sufficient response has led the United States government to pause the U.S.-Canada Permanent Joint Board on Defense. This board in question was founded in 1940. and it has served as an important tool in aligning American and Canadian defense efforts. The U.S. and Canada have been struggling to align militarily because the U.S. has accused Canada of not spending enough on national defense. So why does this matter? Canada spends less on defense than the United States. I'm going to go, so why does this matter? So why does this matter? Canada spends less on the... So why does this matter? Canada spends less on defense than the United States believes is necessary. Canada's spending kind of puts it toward overall the bottom of defense spending within NATO. The real lack of defense spending has come under fire in Canada's Parliament, which has found that under Canada's previous defense policy called Strong, Secure and Engaged, there was a cumulative shortfall of 18.5 billion Canadian dollars between planned and actual capital spending over 2017-2018 to 2023 and 2024. On an annual basis, that gap ranged between 1.4 billion and 4.2 billion, averaging 2.6 billion, or approximately 35% of unspent funds relative to the initial projection. So, in an age where China and Russia are flexing on the world stage, especially within the Arctic, Canada needs to spend more on defense, not less. Furthermore, Canada needs to spend... I'm going to do that again. Furthermore, a Canada that spends more on defense is a Canada that pulls its weight regionally and within NATO, alleviating pressure from countries like the United States. However, Canada is a case study in a trend affecting most NATO countries. Many NATO militaries are underspending, meaning they're not spending all the monies that they're allocated, or they face serious undercapitalization, meaning they're not getting enough money to spend. It is a troubling time for the alliance, something that could have profound impacts for the decades to come. All right, Democrats and Republicans on Ukraine. And someone in the chat just said, oh my God, I thought Ryan was a one-taker. Sometimes, but when I'm actually reading from a script, it's actually harder. I typically try to memorize stuff and go from there. All right. Democrats and Republicans want to give Ukraine more financial support in 3, 2, 1. Then we have Democrats and I'm going to do it next. Next, we have Democrats and Republicans want to give Ukraine more financial support. According to a recent YouGov Economist poll of American voters, more Americans support the same financial support or increasing it for Ukraine in their war against Russia. In fact, this same poll says that more Americans favor giving Ukraine military aid over the Israelis. This poll found that 62% of Americans sympathize more with Ukraine, while 2% sympathize with Russia and 22% sympathize with neither side. 27% of Americans want to increase military aid to Ukraine, 28% would like the same amount sent, 11% would decrease Ukraine aid, and 11% would stop it entirely. This same poll found that fewer Republicans want to decrease funding for Ukraine, and Democrats, polled largely, were consistent with not stopping funding. This poll found that 40% of Americans want to either decrease or stop military aid to Israel. 11% would increase military aid to Israel, and 27% would maintain the same amount of military aid. So Ukraine is more popular than Israel. So why does this matter? While Republicans and Democrats appear to be more supportive of Ukraine, it would be interesting to see if Congress acts on this. At the moment, key leaders in Congress, along with the president himself, appear to be less willing to commit to more support for Ukraine. And this kind of requires a bit of nuance. What I found most interesting here is that Ukraine is winning the information war in the United States with its deeply polarized populace. However, the Israelis appear to have it a lot worse, which could significantly impact America's political, economic, and military support for the Israelis in the short and long term. Finally, Mali insurgents have their moment again. On Thursday, May 7th, Reuters reported that al-Qaeda-linked insurgents attacked 2 villages in central Mali on Wednesday night, killing around 50 people, including members of pro-government and self-defense forces and civilians. This comes on the heels of an extremely violent series of attacks in April of 2026. The Center for Preventive Action, Council on Foreign Relations, argues the continuing collapse of international counterterrorism support, as well as a weakening leadership in regional efforts, has created a vacuum where violent extremism can expand. In this growing personal vacuum, organizations, including Islamic militant organizations, have begun to vie for control of the country. So why does this matter? Mali was a recipient of American support for counterterrorism. However, American mercurial policies have shifted support away, making combating. All right. So why does this matter? All right. So why does this matter? Mali was a recipient of American support for counterterrorism. However, American mercurial policies have shifted support for this away, making combating extremists even more difficult. This also shows dire consequences of American pullbacks from the region of Africa. We are, in part, responsible for these increased attacks. America's new foreign policy, which pulls the United States away from places like Mali, have tremendous consequences both at home and abroad. The Chinese, though, they do appear to be replacing the United States, where it has left Africa and even in places like the Middle East. And this makes sense. Why wait for the United States to change its mind when you can just approach the Chinese for a small cut of whatever natural resources your country possesses? I did not like that at all. I'm going to run that one again from America's New Foreign Policy. America's new foreign policy, which pulls the United States away from places like Mali, have tremendous consequences both at home and abroad. And the Chinese seem to be stepping in where America has left in Africa and the Middle East. And this makes sense. Why wait for the United States to change its mind when you can approach the Chinese for just a small cut of whatever natural resources your country possesses? Thank you for listening. New episodes appear weekly at ryanmcbeth.substack.com, where you can also find the companion intelligence briefing. Sources are cited using embedded and active links to ensure transparency and replication. All right, all done. With that, I will go to answer some questions now. So this is, let's see, save that file. I got to save that file, and I got to stop my... let's see, Global Warning Dialogue, episode 13, replace. And I'll get that in a second. All right! I can't remember which microphone I'm using for my live stream. I think it's this one. Hello, anyone there? Is it this one or is it this one? I don't know. I'll just use both. I also just noticed, like, my background was, should have been that. How serious is the threat in Cuba? Oh, I mean, I'm gonna move this mic. If you guys can't hear me anymore, let me know. It's a small microphone, thank you. So it's kind of interesting, right? Like, Cuba really hasn't been a threat since the 1960s. But, you know, the biggest issue is that they have Chinese listening posts on their island. Hello, Iran. They have Chinese listening posts on their island, and that's not good. All right, that's not good for anybody. And I can tell you that these Chinese listening posts, if the only way we're going to get them off Cuba is if we kind of take control of the country or we change the leadership. So, while I wouldn't say Castro is a threat, not Raul Castro. Actually, Raul Castro isn't the president of Cuba right now or anymore. But, well, I wouldn't say that Cuba is a threat right now. There's certainly an issue with having these Chinese bases in Cuba. And, it's interesting. I could see the Chinese launching missiles from Venezuela at American infrastructure if there was ever some sort of conflict with China. However, I don't see Cuba doing that. I don't think Cuba wants that smoke because they know we would just punish them. So, yeah. I don't think Cuba is a threat, but the people that they let into their country are a threat. I know, as soon as I'm done this, I gotta keep working on my Cuba video. It's hard getting order of battle information for Cuba. It's absolutely freaking nuts. It is so hard. Cuba is so opaque. It's crazy. Now, a lot of the information I'm getting, is literally from Cuba's military Twitter pages. Because I look at that and go, oh my God, that's a BTR-60 with a turret welded to the top. That's crazy. But Cubans, we can't underestimate them either, because Cubans, they're very industrious, or they have a lot of ingenuity in that country, and they have to. And you look at, if you go on to Havana, you'll see all these old Eisenhower era cars, and then you open it up and there's a Soviet tractor engine in there. They do it. They know how to keep things running. They've been doing it since the 1960s. So I would not underestimate the Cubans at all. Is it possible to make a deal with Iran? Boy, I don't know. Part of me thinks no, that it's not possible to make a deal with Iran, because they want the return of the Mahdi. And the only way the Mahdi can return is in a time of great tribulation. And that's why they want a nuclear weapon. That's something that a lot of people don't get. And I've said it in videos and stuff like that, and nobody watches them, which is dude, you need to watch this video. This is why Iran is doing what they do. But they must possess a nuclear weapon because they must use it. Countries like Korea, even Pakistan and India, they possess nuclear weapons because they want to be left alone. Iran wants a nuclear weapon because they want to use it so they can cause the end of the world so the Mahdi can return. This is what 12er Shia believe. And I'm cool. Look, man, you can believe in stones as long as you don't throw them at me. Right? So, yeah, I think it's going to be really tough to negotiate with Iran. Maybe we can get it done. I think my idea of sending the nuclear material to Pakistan, having Pakistan blend it down to 3.67% and giving it back to Iran to be okay, here's a fuel rod, put it in a reactor. I think that everything, every country should have a nuclear reactor. I wish I had a nuclear reactor in my backyard. I wish I did. It's the amount of power. I don't have a soda can. Oh wait, I might have it in the trash. No, I'm not going in the trash. A can, an amount of uranium, the size of a can of soda, could take care of my energy needs for my entire lifetime. We have a magic rock that can boil water. Why the hell aren't we using it? Right? Let's see here. Is Pax Americana close to being over? I think that's more of a political question, but I've said that America now has a gangster foreign policy. We have our Tony Soprano foreign policy. We're capable of kindness, capable of menace, but really we're just interested in the rent. And I think kind of the goal of the current administration is to say, this is our hemisphere. Nobody else is allowed in here. And maybe we might get involved with some external things if we think it's in our interests. But for the most part, here is our hemisphere. And we're not going to get involved with anyone else. And, if you look at it from that standpoint, then what the president is doing makes sense. Whether it's good policy or not, that's for people who are smarter than me. I just kind of tell you what it is. I know what they're doing. They're creating this American hemisphere. And we've also kind of learned that globalization doesn't really work. We sacrificed a good portion of American jobs in the Midwest so that we could have $400 TVs, right? We could have shirts like H&R or whatever, where you have a $10 shirt every 6 weeks, fast fashion. We sacrificed America's jobs and America's readiness for $10 t-shirts and $400 TVs. And I don't know if that was worth the trade. So I can understand the desire to go back to that hemispheric model. And I could easily see us saying, oh, there's a war in Africa? Pfft, not our problem. I mean, you think about it, why the hell were we in Somalia? Well, we were there to feed the Somali people. Well, and then it became, oh, we need to fight these warlords. Then it became, what the hell are we doing in Somalia? And like a Trump presidency kind of means we're not going to do that stuff anymore. Like I just read about Mali, there are some insurgents that are fighting in Mali. All right, go fight in Mali. Doesn't hurt our hemisphere. Greetings from Germany. Do you think that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan will become more likely after the recent meeting by Trump with Xi? I don't think that. I don't think it'll be more likely. I actually think that if anything, Taiwan is going to have second thoughts about invading Taiwan. Mainly because they just watched our capabilities just manhandle Iran. Like Oklahoma City. like the Oklahoma City Thunder do every time they play another team. Like, China just watched that, and also China realizes, like, we're not going to be nice. We're going to come after you. We're going to find what bunker you're in, and we're going to drop a bomb on you. And I think that gave China a little bit of pause. And yeah, we have some lower stocks than ideal right now for some weapon systems, but we have plenty of Harpoons, anti-ship missiles. We have plenty of LRASM, anti-ship missiles. We got plenty of torpedoes. What are we going to use in a fight against China? A lot of naval weapons. Some Tomahawks. I actually don't think Patriots are going to play that much of a role, because Patriots are defending Guam, Okinawa, South Korea, and I think those places are going to get turned into craters within the first 24 hours of the war. Because they have to. China literally has to attack those bases because they can't let the U.S. operate from there. And I think they're just going to overwhelm the system with missiles. So the Patriot's going to give it the old college try, but if you got 16 Patriot missiles and the enemy fires double that, guess what? You're going down. Someone named Brelling said, when we moved on Iran, did we have to? What was the reason we attacked when we did? Most likely the reason we attacked when we did was that the president saw all of those Iranian people in the streets who were protesting, and he was like, you know what? The government of Iran is the weakest it's ever been. Now is the time to attack. Israel has good locations on the leadership. If we do this, the Iranian people will rebel, and we will solve this whole Iranian regime problem. And maybe they'll go back to an actual democracy. Actually, there's no go back. Iran was never really a democracy. They always had a king, but... So, I think that was the thought. But the problem is it took so long to get forces in place that the regime was able to crush the dissent. And now, if you've seen, with your own eyes, you've seen 45,000 people killed by the regime, is that going to make you want to go protest? Probably not. So that's a tough one there, right? Like we took a risk. We thought, all right, we're going to start bombing. The regime is going to fall. The people are going to rise up, and it didn't happen. We took a risk, and it didn't work. And now we kind of have to deal with this evolving situation where it doesn't seem like the regime is going anytime soon. So really, we moved on Iran because the people were rebelling. We thought, all right, they're going to continue to rebel when we start bombing, and that just didn't happen. The Anduril guy, Lucky or whatever, Lucky Palmer, Lucky Palmer. Lucky Palmer, someone asked a question about Lucky Palmer. You're going to have to ask it again, I think, because couldn't the West just quarantine Taiwan? I guess. I mean, you'd have to. So someone just asked, couldn't the West just quarantine Taiwan? I mean, maybe. It's going to take a lot of effort to do that. You know, it's taken a lot of effort to blockade Hormuz, and that's just one lake. Honestly, we could quarantine China fairly easily just by putting ships in the Strait of Malacca. And good luck with that. Like we're gonna, we could cut off China's oil like that. Let's see here. If China floods the zone, do you think U.S. and Taiwan fend them off? Maybe. Like, defending is always easier than attacking. And part of Taiwan's strategy is to turn the Strait of Taiwan into like a hellscape of drones and unmanned surface vehicles, drones, underwater vehicles. Like, it's going to be crazy. China's going to have to run this gauntlet of drones to try to attack Taiwan. I don't know if the U.S. would necessarily. I think the U.S. would get involved, but kind of the problem, and this is kind of a mean way of saying it, but it's true. The second that the chip fabs in Taiwan are destroyed, there is no reason to protect Taiwan anymore. If you want to put away all of your morals and values and just look at it from the standpoint of resources, if China launches an attack on Taiwan and some of those ultraviolet lithography machines, extreme ultraviolet lithography machines are destroyed, there's no reason to defend Taiwan other than, well, it's a democracy. And that's a good enough reason for me. I mean, you're talking to a guy who would have freaking established a no-fly zone in Ukraine. Like freaking let's do it. We got air superiority over the Russians. But the current president is more transactional than romantic about democracy. The Anduril guy, there we go. Solo-minded. The Anduril guy said we would expand classified patent systems to stop China from just ripping off our patents. Good idea. I mean, I don't know enough about it to give an answer to that. I had trouble joining Substack. It was forcing to an old email that I no longer use. Wouldn't let me input my new one. It wouldn't let me fix registration. I don't know how to fix it. I mean, you could tell you what, either talk to support or send me an email. This is GlockGuy4127. Glock. Ugh. I can't even say it without getting like Glock. I'm a SIG guy. Okay, Glock guy. 4147. Send me an email. It's on my website. I'll send support that email to see if they can fix it. Let's see. Happy Memorial Day. Thank you. Yeah, fatwa on nukes. Yeah, fatwas can be overturned. There's a threat, Ryan. The bigger threat of them is Israel, just because Israel is better. There's no way to destroy Israel with sub nukes. Let's see. Couldn't Iran use its nuclear power plants to produce bomb-grade plutonium? I mean, plutonium is a byproduct of a nuclear reactor. Suppose you could do that. Plutonium bombs are a lot more difficult to develop because they require a compression device. So all the timers on these things have to go off at the exact same time, which we managed to do this in the 1940s. You know, but if you have inspections of these plants and stuff like that, then it's a lot harder to happen. Magic rock, coal? No, magic rock is uranium. Like I said, they should send the uranium to Pakistan. Pakistan's like, I don't keep all my money under the mattress. If I need money, I go to the bank. So Pakistan becomes the uranium bank. So yeah, the magic rock is uranium. I guess coal was probably a magic rock if you were in the industrial age, right? Because you were burning wood, and I don't know how much more efficient coal is than wood, but I could see coal being a magic material to a lot of people. I was dumbfounded to see that Joe Rogan had a guest on that said Iran had recently enriched uranium beyond civilian energy levels to show that they could not because they want a nuke. To show that they could not? I don't know what that means. I haven't watched Joe Rogan since 2023. I think it was February 2023. I had to get an MRI done. Oh, thank you for the $5. I had to get an MRI done, and how difficult would it be for ground operations to seize uranium? People keep asking me to do a video about that. I guess I could do a video about that. It would be extremely hard because you'd have to fly heavy equipment in. I would have to do a video about that to really kind of answer that question and really have to sit and think about it. Wonder if thorium would be a magic material. I mean, people talk about thorium as as a possible reactor type, and I think there have been some. I think one of the issues was that the salt was corrosive. I don't know enough about thorium reactors to really talk about them that well, but I can tell you this: if thorium reactors worked, we probably already would have built them, right? So there must be something. Must be something in that. Globalization has pros and cons. Yes, it does. What's my take on Aliens? Best movie ever. I have a picture of it up there. I have Vasquez and Drake with their smart pulse rifles. Best movie. I grew up watching that movie and like, man, I want to be a space marine, right? I want to be Colonial Marine. I have a Weyland-Yutani patch around here someplace. Someone say, there it is. Someone sent me this Weyland-Yutani patch. Which I think is kind of cool. Is Iran the most humiliating embarrassment in U.S. military history? It's not an embarrassment at all. I actually think we accomplished all of our objectives. Like, the objective of destroying Iran's Air Force, destroying their missile ability, the ability to manufacture missiles, they'll rebuild it. The only thing we didn't do was regime change, and that wasn't a goal stated by Marco Rubio. That was a goal that Israel had, not our goal, right? So you have two allies with two different goals. We just don't want them to ever produce a nuclear weapon. Regime change would be nice. I don't think it's an embarrassment at all. Right, honestly, to me, like probably one of the biggest embarrassments was the way we left Afghanistan. That was freaking insane. Let's see. Taipei, nothing in China. Taiwan just needs thousands of Ukrainian boat drones. I mean, that's kind of the plan. It's hard to fight those USVs. Especially since on many ships, the guns can't depress low enough to hit them in the water. And when you think about it, we've had USVs before. They're called torpedoes, right? Torpedoes are kamikaze killers, right? Why does Macbeth seem totally Trumpy? I'm not. No, that's... So, look, when it comes to the president, he does good things and he does bad things. Problem is with the bad things, a lot of them are like the own goal, right? Like, let's just take down the East Wing of the White House. Let's let's send like ICE troops into Minnesota just to mess with people. It's actually I am totally in favor of ICE troops going after like Iranians and people who are in the country illegally, but we don't need to be hiding out at Home Depot. We need to be worried about the Iranians and the Chinese who entered this country when the border was open. We need to find those guys. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about the dude chilling out at Home Depot. Did you hear Russia ordered all foreigners to leave Kyiv and order the destruction of the city? No, I have not heard that. Thanks for the $5 though. Trump said regime change was a goal. I don't believe he did say regime change was a goal. The Marco Rubio, I actually have the talking points right here because they go on the news so much. I'll tell you exactly what the talking points were. The 4 objectives laid out the first night of the war. This is directly from Marco Rubio. Destruction of the Air Force, destruction of their Navy, destruction of their missile launching capability, destruction of their missile and drone factories. And I believe we accomplished all those goals. But the president might have said, yeah, regime change would be nice. This is your time. This is your moment. But the stated goals were these 4 from Mark Rubio. What is your overall look on the U.S. for the next 5 to 10 years? That's a good question. I think that AI is going to be very, very useful. I think it's going to make American workers a lot more efficient. One good example of that is I'm currently researching whether it rained on graduation day at West Point, because there is a rumor, like there's an urban legend that every time it rains on graduation day at West Point, that cadet group that graduated goes to war. And so I have to find every single graduation date and try to correlate that with weather records. And in something like that, AI can be really, really helpful. And in this particular case, it wasn't. And you have to give very specific, but once you get the data into a spreadsheet, then shoving that into like a histogram is a lot easier. It's a lot easier. So that it can make you more efficient. It can do the thinking for you. Like NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration that keeps weather records. NOAA, they only go back to 1890, right? So if you ask AI, find me all the data for whatever, find me all the data for rainfall in West Point, New York, it'll just stop at 1890. But I know that West Point was formed in 1804. So I know I have to look for newspapers that show the weather that day. I know I have to do that. AI can't do that. A computer will always do what you tell it to do, but it will never do what you want it to do. Right? So I think America's going to be a pretty amazing place when AI can make you a more efficient worker. I also think we're going to start getting back to manufacturing jobs. So I see nothing but good things coming down the pike. What would be something to research and make a startup company which would be relevant or needed for the U.S.? Honestly, starting an HVAC company, starting a heating, ventilation, air conditioning, cooling company, because the world is only going to get hotter, right? The world is only going to get hotter, and you have a hell of a lot of people who have moved from the north to the south, and the south is hot, and especially during the summer, and everyone's going to want air conditioning. So honestly, if you could somehow disrupt the HVAC industry, I think you'd make a lot of money. I think that's sexy. Like, everyone wants to develop the next killer app and all that. You go on the Apple Store, I don't know how many thousands, probably millions of apps there are on the Apple Store. But I think it's a lot easier to get rich doing something unsexy. You know, like, all right, people talk about data centers, all right? Data centers are sexy. You know what's not sexy? Porta potties. But the construction workers that are building that data center, they all need porta potties. Right? They all need those portable toilets. What's the possibility of real conflict, and what do you think it really looks like? Going to be a proxy war probably in the countries of Africa. Boy, I don't know. I think Ethiopia. What is it? Egypt is upset right now with Ethiopia because they're building a dam. I could see some sort of conflict happen between Egypt and Ethiopia because Egypt needs the Nile River, but Ethiopia is damming the Nile River. So that could be an issue. How far do you think the Trump admin thinks the USA hemisphere is? Because Trump still seems to want the same type of influence over regions he historically has had major influence over. Oh, thanks to the $10. Boy, some good questions here. I got the best fans. You know, I think that right now we can do both, but barely. I mean, we are likely going to have some sort of intervention in Cuba, whether it's a snatch and grab or a general invasion, probably pretty soon. And I look at, we're still in the Strait of Hormuz, blockading that from Iran. So we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Our military is so big, it's insane, our capabilities. So I think what I can see is the current administration considering this hemisphere, and I don't know the latitude lines or the longitude lines, I'm sorry, of what they define as this hemisphere. But I could see them saying, stay out of our hemisphere, but for some things we're going to go and intervene if it's within our interests. And I don't know if you were on earlier, but I talked about Somalia. Like, what the hell are we doing in Somalia? I mean, I know why. I know why we were in Somalia. It was to feed hungry people, but it turned into we got to find all these warlords, and it turned into nation building, and we're not good at that. Yeah, HVAC is critical, absolutely. Ethiopia will need the dam for food. Yeah, probably. You have more efficient workers, you're going to have fewer workers. Yes and no, right? Because it's like the last time people were really afraid about automation was I want to say it was the weavers in England, because England was making like carpets. It was carpets and clothing. And when someone came out with the punch card system for the looms, you know, when someone came out with the punch card system, like, expert weavers were like, oh my God, look at this punch card system. Like, this is all going to put us out of business. But the fact is that the people that made those looms or worked on those looms, they might get other jobs supporting, making the punch cards or something. Like, that's kind of the theory, that sometimes you lose jobs, but other jobs are created to supplant the jobs that were destroyed. Now, I'll tell you this, Andrew Yang, who was a presidential candidate, his big fear was AI trucks. Because I think America has like 4 million truckers, and most of them are veterans. And Andrew Yang, he kind of ran on this, I want to say in 2016, Andrew Yang was saying, like, oh my God, we're going to have these automated trucks and this is going to put all these truckers out of work. Well, that hasn't happened yet. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. But I can tell you that truckers don't become computer programmers, right? Like, if a trucker loses his job, he's probably not going to get a better high-paying job in tech, right? That doesn't tend to happen. So there will be some cases where we put people out of work and they can't find that other job. And that is something we're really going to have to think about as a society. That's kind of where the whole guaranteed UBI or universal basic income kind of comes into play. I have a few years left in the Army before I retire. Do you think it would be smart to go from MP to PSYOPs? I'm thinking safer for next war. I don't think any place is safe right now. I really don't. I don't think any place is safe right now. It's just unsafe in a different way. Those 5 guys and 5 guys and 1 gal were killed in Kuwait when a drone hit their command post. They thought they were safe. I mean, I would do PSYOPs just because it's cool. We're already seeing gig scam economy. What happens when AI starts putting tech people out of work? I mean, I don't know. That's a good one. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if AI is ever going to put people out of work because, like, I actually have a researcher. I have a guy I use part-time for research, that AI just makes him more efficient. It doesn't really change the number of hours he works, and the work might be better. Our military is big, but our stockpiles are way low. We just delayed some military shipments to Taiwan. Stockpiles of certain weapons, and I covered this earlier. We need to be worried about Patriot, Tomahawk, THAAD. And then thank you for the $9 there. And the fact is that Patriot, Tomahawk, THAAD, important weapon systems, but like I said before, those are going to cover Okinawa, Korea, and Guam. And those 3 places will be smoking craters in the event of a conflict with China. So what we still have plenty of are Tomahawks, LRASM, NASM, the anti-ship missile that's on the littoral combat ship. And we have plenty of torpedoes. And that's what we're going to use in a fight against China. It would be nice to use Tomahawks to take out their land targets. Barracuda. That was one drone or one cheaper cruise missile from Anduril. So we're working. We know about the problem. We're working the problem. But I actually don't think the whole Patriot and THAAD and Tomahawk issue is that big of a deal, mainly because those systems at those bases are going to be overwhelmed. They're going to give it the old college try, but those guys are going to die. Hey, Ryan. So this is Weston Jennings. Hey, Ryan. The U.S. is posturing proof the U.S. Cold War New Order failed, just a standard containment. Are we seeing building of a new framework? I think we are. I think we're seeing the framework of, I called it America's gangster foreign policy, where we're capable of kindness, capable of menace, but mostly just interested in the rent. We want to control our hemisphere. We might not necessarily care what Russia does outside of, what Russia or China does outside of that hemisphere, as long as they're not hurting our interests. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we're definitely changing, at least with this administration. Things can always change back, President Trump, he's not going to run again next term, right? He can't. So, he might get replaced by someone with a totally different theory that screws things up in a totally different way. Like it's a hard job, And if we ever learn from our mistakes, we'd be perfect by now. Immigration, outsourcing, and women entering the workforce destroyed industry and wages. I don't know. I don't know enough about that. I hate Shaheeds being called drones. Yeah, I guess you could call it a low-cost cruise missile. I don't really know what the difference would be. Like, because the difference between a drone and a cruise missile is kind of blended. I think if drones were like one-way attack, one-way attack drone is a better way of putting it, right? And I also think I would say a cruise missile tends to be jet propelled. Have you heard the theory that the U.S. will attack Key West to create an illusion? I don't know how you would do that. No, I haven't heard that theory. That's like a remember the Maine thing. One thing, at the start of the Spanish-American War, there was this battleship. I think it was a battleship. It's called the USS Maine. And this battleship was in Havana Harbor, and it blew up. And some people said it blew up because their boiler exploded, and other people said it was an act of sabotage by the Spanish. But William Randolph Hearst, who owned a bunch of newspapers and who wanted a war so that his newspapers would get more popular, he kind of drummed up sentiment that, the Spanish-American War was necessary. And he even said, like, yeah, we kind of embellished some stuff, but the truth is this is what the American people want. Right? I don't think you would find a single person in the United States Air Force who'd be willing to attack their own country. So I don't really see that as I don't see the United States performing a false flag in Key West. So Wolftooth asks, thanks for the 15 shekels, could Hezbollah beat Israel with drones like Russia and Ukraine? Hezbollah is never going to beat Israel, but the only way that Israel's going to stop these drone attacks is by killing every single Hamas member. I mean, it's horrible to say, right? But it's certainly something that needs to be done in order for Israel to stop these attacks, because these drones they're so cheap. We've essentially entered the democratization of warfare with these small cheap drones. So we can't put that genie back in the bottle. The only advantage of these, the only thing that's kind of on Israel's side is that range is very limited to the north. Would it be worth discussing bringing back the Avenger system? Oh, wow. Probably not. Probably not the Avenger system. I think that the smartest thing for counter-drone would be other smart drones like the Anduril Roadrunner or some of the drones that Ukraine has for interceptors, or even just creating cheaper interceptors. We've had this luxury of creating these Cadillac interceptors like the Patriot and THAAD. Maybe we need a cheaper system that can complement Patriot and THAAD, right? Maybe it's not as capable. NASAMS, that might be an option, right? Oh wait, you said Avenger system. Bringing back the Avenger system. The Avenger system go away? We still have Avenger. I thought, for a moment, when I saw Avenger, I thought PVIDs, I thought of the Vulcan system that was on the M113. I don't think the Avenger, let me look. I don't think the Avenger system, I don't think the Avenger system was retired. No, it's still around. The Stingers, yeah, it's still around. They were National Guard units that have Avengers. They have an Avenger. They used to have an Avenger system at the White House. They might still have one. Let's see here. What else we got? Make America Great Britain again. Yeah, good luck with that. We like our guns here. Well, let's see. Kamikaze drone. Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest. What do you think of Skybow ABM system? I don't have enough information about Skybow to really make an assessment on it. Reefer Madness, because he had lumber to sell. Yeah, I think that was totally vertically integrated. Ford was vertically integrated. They had coal mines and iron ore mines, and all those inputs came into the factory. They had their own steel making inside the Ford plant, and they would just make the steel for the chassis, and the coal would run the power plant. It's crazy. Pretty sure Shahed used satellite guidance, low flyby. I think Shaheds can use satellite guidance, but that's very easy to jam. So, I don't know. Thanks, Bar David, for the 5 shekels there. Is there a chance that China... I don't know why this keeps popping up here. Let's see. How could Israel win the propaganda war? Jesus Christ. Israel has a lot of problems. I have been so critical of Israel when it comes to their professionalism and their blasé attitude towards some things. I think that one of the things Israel should do is they should allow reporters to embed within units that are going out and fighting. And Israel will never allow that. They won't. They're just too security conscious. They're too image conscious. It's weird. Israel's very, very image conscious, but they keep making the same mistakes when it comes to image. You know, if they had allowed reporters to go in with units in Gaza and saw the frustration that Israeli soldiers had when it came to their rules of engagement, then I think we'd have a different story. Because I've talked with, I think, 50 Israeli soldiers. I talked with about 50 Israeli soldiers who, for my video series on an after-action review of the Israeli performance in Gaza and Lebanon, and every single one of those soldiers said their rules of engagement were too strict. Like, there was this one guy who was telling me about, there was this, like, insurgents would hide their weapons, and then they would go to meetings at, like, this hospital, and then leave the hospital and go pick up their weapons. And there wasn't anything they could do about it because the guys were unarmed. They knew they were bad guys. They saw them drop the weapons and then go to their meeting and then come back and pick them up again. But they couldn't engage until they picked up a weapon. So they were so frustrated. But to have journalists on the ground actually reporting that is a lot different than that. And the other issue is that Hezbollah, and actually Hamas, their information warfare system was brilliant. Brilliant. They did a great job. And I think that one of the major issues was that if you are an influencer and you need footage to talk about while you're doing your influencer thing, if you don't have footage from Israel, you're going to show footage from Hezbollah or from Hamas or Hezbollah, right? So you're gonna start seeing that narrative and kind of go with that narrative. And Israel didn't have a competing narrative because they released very little combat footage. So if you're an influencer and you have to make 3 videos a day, and Israel is only putting out combat footage once a week, well, where are you going to get your combat footage? You're going to get it from Hamas, right? You're going to get it from Hamas. And that's just something Israel they didn't understand that. And they didn't understand the power of social media, because it's through social media that people then call their congressmen and say, hey, I don't want us giving money to Israel. I don't want us giving weapons to Israel. And the average congressman wants to keep their job, so they're going to listen to what people are saying, who's talking the loudest. So how could Israel win the propaganda war? They need to start embedding journalists and even maybe influencers in with units who are actually going into combat. And yeah, some of those guys are going to get killed. Sucks to be you. That's what you get for a great story. I don't want her claiming a dog bit her nose off. I don't know what that means, but how do you see Ukraine war panning out now that Ukraine is making deeper penetration? I mean, I've always thought that it's going... It's a tough one, right? Because it's like I've called NATO the unstoppable snail before, and I think that NATO, Ukraine has kind of taken that as well, to the point where you have Ukraine kind of slowly gaining missile superiority over Russia. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that Ukraine is being supplied by Europe, whereas Russia kind of has to do everything themselves. I mean, yeah, they might be buying drone parts from China, but they have to pay for those drone parts with oil revenue, right? Whereas Ukraine is basically getting these 90 billion euro loans from Europe to help fight, and those loans are either going into Ukrainian defense production or Ukraine is buying weapons from Europe. So, I am hesitant to say which way things would go. I think things are looking better for Ukraine than they were before. You know? But yeah, that's I can see Ukraine certainly gaining an advantage to the point where it gets harder and harder for Russia to put troops in the field. And Russia's already having a recruiting problem. I actually have a video that I'm going to do about that. It was that if you lived in a second floor apartment, what would you bother with prepping? Bug out bags of storable food? What would your basic kit be? I don't know enough about that. I don't know enough about prepping. I mean, I have a hurricane kit. When COVID happened, it's funny. When COVID happened, I was like, I'm good. I don't need to do anything. Right? I have my little hurricane supply kit here. It's enough food for 2 weeks. Water's still running. I'm good. And then I didn't realize I ran out of soap. Like the hand soap. And I'm like, crap, that's like the one thing we need right now is soap. So it's like... So I don't know. I would imagine, in a bug out bag, like you think like, oh, I need food, I need water, I need a gun, I need ammunition, I need a knife, I need a compass. Don't forget the soap, because dirty hands will kill you just as easy as a bullet, Do I think Russia will use tactical nukes? I've talked about this like many, many, many times. And I could see Russia using a tactical nuclear weapon to stop a Ukrainian breakthrough. Like, I was actually really surprised that when Ukraine entered Kursk, that Russia didn't use a tactical nuclear weapon to stop that breakthrough. The other reason you would use a tactical nuclear weapon is to create the conditions for a breakthrough, because you can use a tactical nuclear weapon on the front lines and then run troops through that gap that was created by the nuclear weapon. And you can do that safely. You explode a low-yield nuclear warhead, air bursts, so there's not a lot of dirty fallout. You keep people inside their vehicles, right, which is radiation shielding, and you send them through the blast. And they can make that trip mostly safely. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why the Russians use autoloaders on their tanks. It's because Russia assumed that they would fight in a nuclear environment. So every time the loader opened that hatch to load a shell in, they were going to get radiation coming in from the tank barrel gun. Their right arm would be irradiated. And just made sense to just not have the loader, right? Use an auto loader instead. Then you don't have to worry about some guy getting juiced up when they open that breech for the gun. So I don't really see it. I mean, if Ukraine was driving to Moscow, like somehow they had some sort of breakthrough and they're driving to Moscow, like I could see a nuclear weapon being used in that case. But I don't see any advantage of a nuclear weapon. Do they have nukes now that don't produce radioactive fallout? No, they do. They all produce fallout. But fallout is really only an issue because all of the radioisotopes that go into the ground, fallout's really only an issue with a surface burst. Because all those isotopes go into the ground and then get pushed up into the air and then fall out. So if you detonate a nuclear weapon in space or in the air, there's no fallout. There's nothing to fall out. You're going to have some radionucleotides fall to the ground, some heavy metals fall to the ground, but it's not even going to be remotely close to what you would get if you had a weapon actually hit the ground. Would the U.S. be incentivized to use nukes on Iran or somewhere else if Russia uses tactical nukes in Ukraine? I mean, that's the Pandora's box, right? I think one of the reasons that China told Russia don't use nuclear weapons is that China knows that a very effective use of a nuclear weapon would be to stop an invasion force. A great case for a nuclear weapon would be a nuclear cruise missile to blow up a squadron of ships. When you see pictures of Navy ships, a lot of times, like, they're really, really close together for the picture. But in reality, they're miles apart. They're like 5 miles away, like over the horizon, you know? So that way one nuclear weapon can't take them all out. So in China's case, if you are performing amphibious landings, those ships have to be close together because you have this train of ships coming in with supplies. You use a nuclear weapon on that landing zone, that could take out those landing craft. And if you have it actually hit the ground, then you have your fallout and you contaminate that whole area. It's going to be a lot harder to run troops through there. So I don't think China wants Russia to use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine because they know that we would use one in Taiwan against the Chinese. How can Putin use nuclear weapons that'll damage Russian territory? They can't, really. He could use an airburst, like I said, which would use radiation and blast and heat to kill. But that whole area would still be, people would think it was contaminated. It's really difficult to get that out of people's heads. Hi, tall from Iran. I finally got a VPN to get internet. I love you, Ryan. Thanks. What is the best way to counter the regime's forces for Iranian people so we can expect some kind of support? I mean, I would like to say protesting or actively fighting the regime with weapons. That's a lot harder to do. right? Since very, very few people in Iran, civilians in Iran, have weapons, mainly hunters and farmers. And in that case, it's mainly shotguns. The answer would have been different 3 months ago than it is now. Even if there was a revolution, I don't know if the U.S. would support that now. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't. Boy, if the protests had continued to the point where the U.S. started bombing, I think it would have been a different story. I don't know if there's going to be any difference now. Ryan, speaking of China, do you think their 2027 plan to take over Taiwan will be delayed? No, I don't think it'll be delayed to 2029 because of the purge of their top generals. I think it'll be delayed because ideally China wants to wait for, ideally I would wait for an American election year. I would wait until 2028 because that is an American election year. Oh, thank you, man. I think it would be, you'd wait until an American election year to actually perform some sort of attack. Americans are much more indecisive during an election year, you know? So I also think that China saw our capabilities in Iran and was like, man, America will come after us. America will find us in our bunkers and come after us. So, I don't think that's something that that China really conceptualized before. That we will come after you individually. That's kind of an issue, and China needs to make sure that they are protecting themselves, and they gotta build some bigger bunkers. So, someone else here. Retired surface warfare officers. Ships are usually distant apart because of safety of navigation, organized maneuvering, radar coverage. I buy that too. Yeah, that must be crazy. I've seen. I know, like a couple of years ago, like there was a Navy ship somewhere in Asia. I want to say the Strait of Malacca, and they rammed another ship, and they had a surface warfare officer on there who was barely qualified. And of course, the captain gets in trouble because he's in charge. Someone asked a question: Ukraine, are drones or counter-artillery battery radars more important at the tactical and strategic level? At the operational level, honestly. It'd be operational level. Tactical level for counter-battery radar. Operational level for counter-battery radar. Who's ever tested tactical nukes? Well, we've tested them. And technically, the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, by today's standards, would have been considered a tactical nuclear weapon. What's kind of weird is that there's no difference between a strategic nuclear weapon and a tactical nuclear weapon except for yield, right? Tactical nuclear weapons are kind of a term that we made up, but generally you might say it's between 1 and 15 kilotons, whereas weapons that are designed to go after economic or population targets are in the megaton range. So, yeah, but the United States has tested them. We tested a weapon called the Davy Crockett, which was literally a recoilless rifle nuclear weapon. It was designed to be fired by dudes and destroy armor formations. Do you think Putin can provide Iran with nuclear weapons? I don't know if... I don't think Russia necessarily wants a nuclear-armed Iran either. Nobody wants a nuclear-armed Iran except Iran. And also, in order for nuclear weapons to work, so Russia has these things called permissive action links. And these are basically these devices that allow that weapon to be used We actually invented these devices, these permissive action links, and then we gave that tech to Russia and said, please use this on your nuclear weapons so nobody steals one and uses it. So if Russia gave Iran a nuclear weapon, they could do that and then be in control of the permissive action link and say, we're only going to unlock this weapon if we think you need it. But like, who would agree? Iran wouldn't agree to that, and Russia wouldn't want to do that either, because then it puts any use of an Iranian nuclear weapon on them, and we don't want that. If Putin is killed, how long do you think the war will continue? Oh, I don't know. I'm running low on water here. I'm going to have to go soon. I think that the war won't end until Putin is dead, but just because Putin is dead doesn't mean that the war ends, if that makes any sense. There may still be people in Russia who think that the war is a good idea. And if they are in charge, then you could certainly see continuation of the conflict. But I don't see a path to any sort of peace with Putin still there. Let's see here. Ryan, give us a good Kalishi bet for Cuba. You know, Kalishi actually, my agent came to me with a proposal from Kalishi. Hold on for a second. I gotta grab an iced tea or something because I'm running out of water and I'm talking. All right. I have been talking for 3 hours straight. Kalishi, actually, my agent came to me with an offer to do an ad for Kalishi, and I turned them down. I don't really like the whole betting market thing. Do you think the regime falls before July? Just kidding, kind of. I think that we don't move an aircraft carrier someplace unless we're going to use it. So I think that it's certainly possible they could fall before July. I think that's a possibility. Greetings, fellow Rye guys and Rye girls. There's no Rye girls. Like 3% of my viewer base are women. And a potential Taiwan invasion, what is the likelihood you think Japan, U.S., other Pacific allies will be as reliable as Israel? I think that's pretty likely. I think it's likely that Japan would fight. I think that Japan, South Korea would likely fight. I think that Japan and South Korea would likely fight, but Philippines as well. I think the reason I say Japan and South Korea because Japan and South Korea would likely be attacked by China, mainly because our bases are there. And Koreans and Japanese will likely die, and so they would probably come to the fight. So I think it's pretty likely that they'll be reliable allies because they certainly have skin in the game. Can you name any name in Russia apart from Putin who has balls? I don't know. I don't know enough about Russian politics to really give an answer. To that. Oh, maybe. maybe you have some sort of some Russian that would step up. I just don't know who those people are. right? Because Putin has kind of surrounded himself with people who agree with him. And I don't think he's really thought about succession plans. I think it's kind of dangerous when you're a dictator to think about succession plans, you know? Mainly because when you start thinking about succession plans, that's when like you have this issue where if you appoint a guy who I want you to take over when I'm gone, that guy might think I want to do that now, right? So I don't know who would be in the running if Putin ever died. Russia does have a vice president. Who's the Russian vice president? Oh, it was abolished in 93. Okay. I thought they did have a vice president. There's something wrong about that. Do you really believe that Russia has concerns? Yeah, I do. I do. I think North Korea isn't that good of an example because North Korea developed their nuclear weapon in secrecy. So yeah, I don't think Russia wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. There's another thing about Iran. It's that, even though they're a different kind of Islam, like Russia saw what radical Islam did to their country, like the Chechens, and they weren't too crazy about that. All right. So I think that there's a big difference between, like, the reason Kim Il Jong got a nuclear weapon was so that other nations wouldn't be able to invade him. Right? The reason Iran wants a nuclear weapon is to blow it up and cause the end of the world and hasten the coming of the Mahdi. So it's two different theories. So someone just asked, the last Quincy said, in a potential Taiwan invasion, what is the likelihood, do you think Japan and other Pacific... Oh, I answered that. All right. Let's see here. Snowden, LOL. Who was talking about Snowden? Kitty be good, if that is your real name. Snowden. Screw Snowden. The guy's a fake ass friggin' cyber guy. Doesn't even have a degree. Oh, who is it looks like Vice President was served as Alexander Ruskoy. He was the Vice President of Russia. Did you see what those nasty Ukrainian drones did to those poor Russian military student? I did not. I have been so focused on Cuba the past couple of days. I'm developing this whole order of battle for the whole Cuban army. It's hard work. Russia could be broken into many countries. Yeah, I think that I could easily see Russia turning into like a fiefdom of warlords. Easily. Islam is religious zealousness. Communism is imperialism. And when those two wonder twin powers get together, you get some interesting stuff. I was saying he could replace Putin as a joke. Oh! Yeah! I mean, screw that guy. So, another funny story. I had, thank you for that, or Kitty be good. I got a message from this dude who what was the name of the guy who was part of the anti-terrorism organization, and then he was leaking information, and then he resigned, and then he went on Sean Ryan and said Israel made the U.S. attack Iran. I can't remember that guy's name, but I got an email from someone who represented that guy and as like his agent and said, hey, would you like to have this guy on your show? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't like this guy on my show. No, it wasn't John Kiriakou. It was a recent Trump appointee, former Special Forces guy. Can't remember his name right now, but like, I was like, no, I don't want that guy. Joe Kent. Yes, Joe Kent. Screw that guy. So this guy, he knows he's been sending leaks out, and he knows he's going to be in trouble. So he resigns, and he goes on Sean Ryan to kind of inoculate himself from the leaks he told, and said, oh, Israel's doing this, and now he looks like if the government comes after me, it's because I was telling the truth, right? That was kind of his line of thinking. And so I get an email from his agent. He's like, hey, he's available for interviews. And I'm like, screw you! Are you aware that of what this guy did? And he said, well, I represent Snowden and Kiriakou and Alexander Assange. And I'm like, was Hitler not available? Like, what the hell? You represent these people? So I need to send a message to the FBI. I have to go onto their website and I have to put in a form, because but this person is likely a foreign agent or a foreign actor. So I have to go into what do you call it? I have to go and I have to answer a bunch of questions because I was contacted by someone who could be a foreign agent. And that's just something you have to do when you do consulting for the government. Let's see here. So what else I got? Tulsi. What about Tulsi? Thank you. I think it's a lot of fun too. I don't do this very much, but I did it to show the Global Warning podcast, and then I'm sorry, dude. Alex from Ukraine he's a cool guy. I kind of like him. It's been proven Greta Thunberg has made a real difference to climate change. When she comes on TV, approximately 1 million people turn their TVs off. That's an old joke, oldie but a goodie. I don't know if Joe Kent is in the same realm as Hassan or Fuentes, but I don't know, maybe. Do you think Tulsi was potentially a Russian sympathizer? I don't think she was a sympathizer. I think that I've talked about her before. I did a whole video when she was being interviewed. My biggest problem with Tulsi Gabbard was that she was an intelligence consumer, not an intelligence producer. And traditionally, ODNI was a job for people who've been in the intelligence community. And yes, Secretary Gabbard, oh, is she a secretary? Yeah. Director Gabbard is an Army colonel. I think in a civil affairs unit. And she doesn't have that intelligence collection capability. So she never really had to do that. She consumed intelligence, but she never really produced it. That was my biggest problem with her. And did she do a good job? I don't know. I don't know if she did a good job or not. The fact is that sometimes spouses do get cancer. And she probably has enough money to live off of, and you know what? My husband's more important than this. I don't really read too much into her leaving. Well, people used to say, oh, Tulsi Gabbard's a Russian agent. I don't think she is. I just think that sometimes she would go on Joe Rogan or other podcasts and lie about America is run by the military-industrial complex, which she said. She's lied about Ukraine bioweapons labs. And I think what that really displays is likership, not leadership. Because you see something trending online, bioweapons labs, I'm going to talk about that, I'm going to jump on that, right? So I don't think she was a Russian agent. I think that's absurd, because that would come up in your security clearance. They polygraph you. during your top secret clearance, they give you a polygraph. It's not like Meet the Fockers or Meet the Parents. It is, they are asking you questions you wouldn't even talk about with your spouse, with your priest, you know. So I don't think she was a Russian sympathizer. What else we got? When are we playing Helldivers? When we can. Tulsi is wonderful. I hope her husband will be okay. I think she could be president one day. I mean, maybe. Maybe. But I do think that she is certainly not a Russian agent. I think that she just says stuff online because it was popular to say and it gets views. And when you're going for the likership, the popular thing to say, that's kind of what comes out. Tulsi is addicted to power, but no traction. There's a lot of people who are addicted to power. You know, I can tell you that like I can see why some. What kind of questions do they ask? Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? They ask you questions about employment. They ask you personal questions about drinking, about gambling. And I know you say polygraphs are unreliable. Let me tell you something. When you are in a polygraph room and you are strapped into a chair with all sorts of leads coming off you, polygraphs get very, very real. Like you can say to yourself, oh, you know, I believe in whatever, right? Like, oh, I know polygraphs aren't real. I know polygraphs aren't accurate. It's really easy for you to say that now. You get into a room with somebody who's giving you a polygraph, it's a lot different. And just the easiest way to deal with that is to just tell the truth. Ryan is addicted to beer. I'm actually not addicted to beer. I have some Michelob Ultra. I like whiskey. I actually haven't been drinking that much recently. This was a tougher month for me financially. Yeah, Cosmic Zebra. I always get polygraphed when I get my clearances. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. What was I thinking? I was having a tougher month financially because I had to replace my air conditioner, and then I had to get my car serviced or my truck serviced, and then I had I needed a new water heater. Like everything that could have gone wrong last month went wrong. Like everything broke. I need a new water heater, new air conditioner, new and I had to spend $800 on a procedure to fix my Achilles tendon because I heard it running 3 years ago and it's always hurt, and I finally decided, you know what, I got to get it fixed. So I went to get it fixed. I haven't bought any whiskey. Like that bottle back there, that's the last bottle I got. Like I should probably go get some, but like it's just not important. Like I need to get a handle on these bills, and then I can go buy whiskey, which I guess means I'm not addicted, so I'm good. Polygraph is tough to hide from, very tough. I mean, if you just tell the truth, there's no hiding, right? Like the government, they don't care if you smoked little weed in your teens or anything like that. Just tell the truth. So all you gotta do is tell the freaking truth. Someone said, why not airdrop handguns all over Iran? Probably because it would get people killed. the Liberator pistol back in World War II was this idea of like, oh, we can just create this pistol and we'll drop it over France, and then they can use that pistol to take the Germans' weapon. And I don't think it ever actually worked. And if you're using a pistol against a guy with an assault rifle, you're probably going to lose. You might take one of them with you, but yeah, a polygraph, any of those top secret questions, it's not fun. Your on-screen chat is frozen. I still see it going. Let me grab the. Let me reload that. If my on-screen chat is frozen, to reload the pop out here. I mean, it looks like it's okay to me. 1.5 million subs in this channel, but no join membership button. I don't want, like, if you want to become a member of my Substack. Kitty Be Good, do they care about THC use? I don't know. I don't know if they care about THC use. THC, like marijuana use, like current marijuana use? Yeah, because it's still, THC is still an illegal drug. But, yeah, I don't think, I think they probably still care about it. I'm pretty sure. I think, like, if you used to use it, you just have to admit it. You just have to say, I smoked marijuana. They might ask you, oh, how many times have you smoked marijuana? You just give them an honest answer. That's all it really takes. That's all it really takes. Just give an honest answer. Let's see here. Have you thought about doing a video on how much money? Oh, someone else asked me, are snipers obsolete? I have to do a video. I just did a video about that, and I sent it to the editor. Have you ever thought of doing a video on how much money the U.S. has sent to Israel and how much they have spent purchasing equipment in return? I would have to look into that. I haven't thought about that. But another thing we get in return is we get a lot of new tech, like the trophy system, which stops incoming rockets. That's an Israeli system. So Trophy is really good at that. Yeah, I don't know why people smoke marijuana. I mean, if it's your thing, it's your thing. I'm cool with that. It's just not my thing. I don't even like to get drunk. I mean, people joke, oh, you like to get drunk. I have a very high tolerance for alcohol. And not only do I not get drunk, I don't like to get drunk. And I think it's because I like to enjoy my alcohol. I like to taste the alcohol. So, yeah, I don't like to get drunk. But if you're into THC, like, all right, I'm cool with it. I actually think that we should allow marijuana use in the military. You just have to, come up with the rules. If you want to take a gummy to help yourself sleep, take a freaking gummy. Just don't do it 8 hours for operating a vehicle or whatever. I think we need to really take a look at that. All right, what else we got here? Why are Russia, China, and Qatar so good at capturing U.S. public figures and the U.S. so bad? I'm not aware that the Russia, China, and Qatar were captured U.S. public figures. You mean like the name of that basketball player? I forget her name. She was a WNBA player. She was imprisoned by Russia because she brought a little weed across the border. I don't know. let's see here. Everyone gets a trophy. Everyone. It would be nice if everyone had a trophy system. Alcohol breaks down and unfolds the essential proteins that germs need to survive. Oh, I didn't know that. What's your opinion of the Trae Young trade? Did DC trade Trae Young? Did DC trade Trae Young? She was sent to Washington, right? Don't scare me like that. I like Trae. I mean, I think that with a first-round draft pick and Trae Young, and we have Anthony Davis as well, I think like the Wizards could be a contender next year. Might make the playoffs. It's definitely a rebuilding year. Alcohol interrupt your digestion for 24 hours, just even one drink, and your digestive system will prioritize the elimination of alcohol. Have you seen the movie Warfare from last year? If so, what did you think of it? I don't need to see Warfare again. It wasn't it was a good movie, but it wasn't like a quotable, exciting action movie. It was more like going to work. Like, if you want to know what that particular snapshot in time was like in Iraq for a SEAL team that was embedded with the Army, it's an excellent movie. I think my biggest problem with Warfare is that the Bradleys didn't have shells ejecting from their 25mm Bushmasters when they came to rescue people. But, you know, they were using Vismods. I mean, I think Ukraine-Russia ends this year. No, I don't. What else have people said here? I missed the flavor of bourbon since quitting. Yeah, you know, I don't ever... Brittany Griner. Thank you, Zach Reel. Brittany Griner. Yeah, I love drinking. I love drinking. I love whiskey. But like I'm not doing it right now. But I have to be, you know, I can't spend $80 on a bottle of whiskey right now because new water heater, new air conditioner, had to get my truck serviced. You know, this damn Achilles tendon thing I'm taking care of. It sucks getting old. It sucks. I'm 50. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think I'm 38. I'm 50. You know? We're getting any shorts today regarding Cuba? No, I wasn't really going to do anything today because I have too much to do right now. I got to get this Cuba video done. So I wasn't really planning on doing any shorts today. And in fact, I'm almost done my cigar, so I'm probably going to go in a second. Totally not marketing Bruno Mars by default. You know, I like to put lyrics from Bruno Mars songs in everyday conversation. If you don't believe me, just watch. Kitty be good. Cuba, Hassan, and Code Pink Lady getting subpoenaed. What? Kitty. If you have information on that, send me an email. My address is on my website. I haven't heard that. Cuba, Hassan, and Code Pink Lady getting subpoenaed for doing what? Well, subpoenaed? Send me an email about that, because I'm not familiar with that. But usually, if the government, I'll tell you this, pretty sure no one thinks you're 38. Thanks a lot. I did not hear about it. Flotilla to Cuba. Let's see. I'm not that familiar with who Hassan Piker is. I know he's like a communist who like preaches the virtues of communism from his like mansion in Florida. you know, for going to a sanctioned hotel and giving aid to a foreign adversary in Cuba. When? When did they do this? Because there's no, you're not allowed to visit Cuba. Are you allowed to visit Cuba? I don't know. I didn't think Americans were welcome in Cuba. Unless he has a Turkish passport. Because I think the guy's from Turkey initially. Actually, he probably doesn't have a Turkish passport because if he ever went back to Turkey, he would be conscripted. Because I know when my army unit went over to, I think we stopped in Turkey when we were deploying. We stopped in Turkey and like we were on a civilian flight, and all the there was this one guy in my unit who was Turkish. He wouldn't get off the plane because there were Turks like waiting at the airport for any Turkish Americans because they would grab them and they'd conscript them into the army for 2 years and then give them back to the U.S. I'm almost done. My cigar, and then I got to get back to work. What? Code Pink and Hassan were subpoenaed for aiding the Cuban government by spending money there. It's one of the reasons I don't buy Cuban cigars. I don't even think you're allowed to buy Cuban cigars outside of the United States. I mean, you're not allowed to buy them inside the United States, but if you go to another country and you buy a Cuban cigar, I think that's a crime. How do you think the U.S. special operation in Cuba looks? Would it be more or less complex in Venezuela? That's a good question. I think it would probably be about the same level of complexity. Cuba has fewer air defense assets, but they probably have much better intelligence assets. Yeah, it says from Canada you can buy Cuban cigars. One of the problems with Cuban cigars right now is that they're crap. They're crap. Like, Cuba is just pushing whatever they can out the door because they need the hard currency. So cigars are coming in plugged and all that. Like, it's like... Yeah, I would not buy a Cuban cigar even if they were available or if it was legal to buy, just because the product, the quality isn't there. Next, Deseret book. Oh my God. I'm trying. It's just so hard with all this work I have to do. Hassan said his go-between from the Cuban regime invited him and they would set him up with Wi-Fi so he could stream during the blackout. Jesus Christ. Nick Shirley visited Cuba. Cuban cigars are for sale in duty-free stores. I wouldn't buy them there either. You know, Mike Huckabee and Mark Levin are Jesuit bookends. You have trouble telling them apart. Do you like Nicaraguan cigars? What's my favorite cigar? Honestly, I like these Partagas Black Labels. I have one cigar of... Let me see. No, not these. I have Lanceros that I really like. So, these Romeo and Juliet Lanceros are pretty good. This Perdomo, pretty good. I don't tend to discriminate when it comes to cigars, though. Oh, shit, did I put this back the wrong way? Do you like cigarettes? I do. I don't smoke cigarettes that often anymore. Like, cigarettes are great, but they're really bad for you. What watches do I wear? Right now I'm actually wearing a Seiko 5. So this is my Seiko 5 watch, and I wore this for my appearance on TV. I had an appearance on TV today, and I wore like a red, white, and blue tie. And I normally wear my orange watch, but I decided to wear my Seiko 5 because it has red, white, and blue on it, and you know. Oh yeah, I'm from Canada. I went for Nicaraguan cigars. I had a Cuban. There was dirt on it. Yeah, it makes sense. They're just throwing everything out there. Show us your arm scars. So this is. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but you can see where they put my arm back on. Right there. That was a bad day. That was a bad freaking day. I will tell you that was. If you look up the story, never give up the will to live. Never give up the will to live. It was a bad day. All right, I'm out of here. As much as I'd love to hang out with you guys, I got to get going because I have to finish my my Cuba thing. There's another video I got to do. Oh, okay. I'll tell just for you, Kitty Be Good, since you asked about it. I'm gonna tell you my story. I've told this story before. I have a whole video about it, but so. Back when I was in basic training, right, for the Army, I'm going to stick around another 5 minutes to tell this story because someone asked me to tell it. So, back when I was in basic training, there was this one drill sergeant Riggs. I think we called him Drill Sergeant Terminator. You know, big black guy. He was like all tabbed out, you know. And this guy, he used to talk like this, like, okay, Poppets, today we're going to play a little game. I likes to call it Kill the Poppet. So anyway, this guy, we were getting smoked for something. We were doing all these exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, and flutter kicks and all that. And I was just like, I'm sitting on my back and I'm doing flutter kicks and I think I'm crying, you know, and I'm like, this is horrible. I want to quit. And I don't know if he was saying this to everyone or what, but he came over to me and he put his drill sergeant hat about 1 millimeter in front of my face and he said, Poppet McBet, never give up the will to live. And I didn't quit. I stayed through it, right? And I remember my drill sergeant, it was over. I decided not to quit. And years later, I'm out of the military. I was living in Silver Spring in an apartment, and I was a triathlete. And I went out for a longer. No, I was living in Odenton. Maryland. And I was getting ready for a triathlon. I'm riding my bike. And it was 5 a.m, and I took a turn a little too fast, and I missed the turn on this path, and there was like a concrete light pole. And at the last moment, I put my arm up like that, and the light pole sliced my arm off. It was still hanging by like a couple of tubes. And I wrecked my bike, you know, and I'm sitting there on the ground and I'm thinking, if I don't get a tourniquet on my arm in the next 15 seconds, I'm going to bleed to death. And I heard that little voice in my head, Sergeant Riggs, McBet, never give up the will to live. So I was like, God damn. So I got my bike jacket, and I was able to make a tourniquet, and I used a bike wrench. And, like, the bleeding stopped. And then I tried to use my phone to call 911, and I couldn't. I couldn't get a signal. I later learned that, like, sometimes you might be able to call 911 even if you don't have a signal. So I put the phone back in my pocket, and I was thinking, all right, if I stay here, I'm going to die. Maybe another cyclist or another runner will come along and find me, but if I stay here, I'm going to die. So I stood up and I picked up my arm and I carried it. And I kept walking until I could get a signal, called an ambulance, and then I had to walk to the freaking ambulance. They didn't even wheel out the gurney for me. I had to walk to the ambulance. And, they take me to the hospital. I swear they had every single bump on the way there. Finally get to the hospital, and there's these nurses that are coming in. It was a teaching hospital. So they had nurse after nurse come in and check on me and say, like, hey, like they were showing these student nurses, like, what an amputation looks like. Because it's not very common. And this one nurse came in and she saw me and went like, yeah, like, I'm like, oh, that ain't good. But I remember this one nurse came in, the student nurse looked at me and asked me my story. I told her the story, and she was like, hey, I would never have been able to do what you did. And I said, yeah, you would have. Never give up the will to live. Like, what kind of bike? It was I'm looking at it right now, it was a QR, Quintana Roo bike. All right, I really am done now because I got to get some work done. Thank you guys for watching. Send me that email, whatever your name is. Want more information on this. All right. You guys have a good day. Get that. Vlogger, okay. Fire to the hospital.